1 month ago on April 5th, this began.
What we're doing down here is surviving, because that's all we can do, because there's nothing left for us.
With garbage trucks and police watching, City of Vancouver staff went into the downtown Eastside to formally remove the latest tent encampment. Fire officials, the VPD, and some community members called for the removal, citing fire safety and concerns over rising crime. But without plans for adequate housing, advocates and residents stood opposed. Why did the city take such forceful action? And where did it leave citizens? All right, we're just pulling up onto East Hastings, and we've been down here for a couple of visits since the big tent decampment that we were here for on April 5th, and just checking in on people and seeing how they're doing and seeing how people are feeling. The tents are gone, but there's lots of big umbrellas everywhere. I'll show you what we saw and heard. Remember, you told me at the time you thought that first night you were probably going to go into the alley. Yeah. Where did you end up staying?
I went into the alley that night, and then I moved back to where I was. Moved back and forth a few days, and then they came down and took a whole bunch of my stuff.
What about like shelters?
They're even worse. Just you never know where your stuff is, and I'll ask these guys, what do you guys think about shelters? You stay in them? No, because you get robbed as soon as you go there.
Do the streets feel different since the tents have been gone?
No, it's more dog eat dog. Like everybody's getting ripped off and stolen from, and you fall asleep and somebody rips off all your stuff. And so they're getting kind of nasty with each other. Police came out with some stats, and they said there's been less crime in the last couple of weeks that they've seen. Less crime that's been reported. Yeah, like there's a lot more that goes on, but that doesn't get reported.
Have you had anything happen to you so far?
Yeah, I had everything I owned that I had with me robbed off me 2 nights ago. I fell asleep out in front of the 44. I really woke up with nothing. They even dug out my pockets.
What's the dream?
Oh, the only thing I really want is a bathroom and a kitchen. If it's got that, I'd take just about anything.
People have had to disperse and, find a place to go. And not everyone ended up still within the downtown East Side along that East Hastings stretch. So we decided to just, visit the area here by the viaducts, heading over to Crab Park, Oppenheimer, just to see where folks ended up. When they asked you to pack up to move, where did you go that first night?
We just stayed on the streets. We just stayed outside. We're outside a lot.
Nothing offered, like in terms of SROs or anything like that?
That's the thing. We got an SRO. We finally got a place, so they call it. And the landlord tried to rape me. And I'm so afraid to go back to an SRO.
The fact that the mayor and city council and the fire chiefs and VPD all together have come together and said everybody needs to move, but they've also come out and said, yeah, we don't really have housing for everyone. What does that say to you about what they're trying to do here?
I've lost a lot of friends from some bad drugs. I think it might be from the government, to be honest. Because it's like all of a sudden all these bad drugs are out. Why are all these people dying? That would solve their crisis, wouldn't it? That's how we look at it. We're a problem to them. They want to get rid of us. That we're just garbage and they want to clean us up.
What really struck me about that conversation was when she talked about the poison drug crisis and what her theory was that it could be potentially the government that was responsible for it. And I think to many of us, we might think, wow, that's almost like conspiracy level stuff, but I think what it really spoke to was her sense of self-worth and how she feels society views her and her community and people who are living in the margins. We got this interesting tip, shout out to Justin McElroy, our colleague, that there was this meeting that was held October of last year and just before council was sworn in. And in this meeting, the ABC party vowed they would not displace downtown Eastside residents without adequate housing. And this was not said by the mayor. He wasn't in the room at the time, but by his former chief of staff. and we are going to go talk to him. Kareem, first of all, I wanted to ask you about that meeting. What was the promise or the vow that was made about the downtown Eastside encampments in that meeting?
I committed that we would not decamp Hastings without the appropriate housing being committed. We knew at that point that 100 to 120 modular units on Hastings and in the Athletes Village were coming online, so we were quite comfortable making that commitment at that point.
So why are you choosing to speak out now? Because you left the mayor's office about 2 months prior to all of this, right?
Yeah, I made the comments, and I think I owe the community an apology, and I'm also here just to also ask for forgiveness for misleading everyone in that way. So I feel a tremendous amount of remorse for making that comment and having it not be true, and that's why I'm here today. Just apologize.
This is really eating at you, hey?
Yeah, no, I'm quite disheartened, and you know, I think a lot of people in the community spent a lot of time educating me and teaching me about what was going on, what was happening, and you know, I felt a sense of obligation that, you know, that on the day of the decampment, that the words that I said to them turned out to not be true, and yeah, it was pretty gutting. It was pretty gutting for me. You don't often go into a room like that and make the kind of commitments that you have, and then have them, you know, turn out to not be true.
We are just waiting for the mayor, and is that him? No, that's not him. Waiting for the mayor to have a chat.
I think he's on his way now.
Oh, there he is. So we've spoken to a number of stakeholders in the downtown Eastside, and there was a meeting just before you were sworn in with a group called the CCRN, so around 30 to 40 stakeholders. You weren't there that night, but your then Chief of Staff, Kareem Alam, was there, and he vowed on behalf of ABC that you would not be removing those tents until there was sufficient housing for everyone. What changed?
Well, first of all, there was sufficient housing for everyone. So, like I said, leading up to the event, everyone was offered housing, and you know, I forget that actual...
Really, because the shelter said that they were full. All the shelters said that they were very full. UGM says they've been full for 15 months leading up to it.
So there was enough shelter space in the system. Sometimes it wasn't right there, but every single person who put their hand up was offered and received shelters.
You know, a lot of people have come out strongly against it. So we heard from the BC Federation of Labour. They represent 500,000 members. They called it the actions callous and dehumanizing, you know, including among them CUPE. We had 700 academics from across the country, most of them from BC, all decrying that, saying that, you know, this is against public health best practices. Federal Housing Advocate called for a moratorium on the actions. We saw the BC Human Rights Commissioner also flag it being a problem. Then multiple frontline stakeholders on the downtown Eastside, nonprofits, you know, some of them the Aboriginal organization, the Battered Women's Society, all saying that this should not have happened the way it did. Why did you feel like it had to?
Well, you know, we've spoken to multiple individuals, you know, people, residents of Vancouver, people that are living in the downtown Eastside, our engineering crews, the Vancouver Fire and Rescue, the police department, and just regular citizens, and the overwhelming response has been incredibly positive. And so I think individuals that are commenting should spend a lot of time in the downtown Eastside.
But these are people in the downside. They're social workers. You know, they're people frontline workers.
And a lot of the frontline workers that we speak to actually do support it as well. And so the reality is, look, we were enforcing a fire bylaw. My question to everyone who has these comments, look, we welcome them. Here's the reality. What would they do in the situation that we had? We had a significant public safety risk. What happens if one of those 100-pound tanks go off and it takes out an entire structure or an entire city block where hundreds of people die? What would they say then? Like, we're not working in a perfect theoretical situation. We did have housing options available. We do have, you know, we're providing as much support services as possible. We have to look at it holistically and do what's good for the whole. And that's what we did that day.
So, Michelle, you know, the first day of the formal tent removal, April 5th, your office is right down here. Yep. What went through your head as you watched the community youth service face that?
It was really scary, sad, and like not the way things should be done. I would say like the messaging had been from council, we want to do things that are community-based, community-led solutions. Community has the expertise, the knowledge, etc., so let's work together. And then when the encampment happened, with a de-encampment happened without the forewarning, without the collaboration, so nobody could prepare for it properly and do things. It was opposite of what they had led us to believe, the way they were going to work, and that was disappointing from a, relationship perspective and traumatizing from an actual decampment perspective.
The mayor says they had to do this for safety reasons. Talking about the propane tanks that were down here, the crime. What's your response when you hear that?
I think that safety is an issue, especially gender-based violence, but forcibly removing people without giving them the supports and a place to go, it is only, it's not even a Band-Aid. It's just kind of like dispersing things. It's not actually solving what the real issues are. So it's not going to change. That crime, safety, gender-based violence, it's still happening. It's just not happening, in one place.
The mayor says it's ultimately a public safety issue. That's why the city made the decision that it did. And we're not privy to the up-to-date minute-by-minute information that he was. But what the mayor did say is that he's committed to cleanup for as long as it takes. And from the many conversations we've had with people down here, some whom you heard from and some who did not want to appear on the screen, almost everyone told us that they thought that it caused more harm than good, at least for them. The issue is a layered and complex one, and we'll see what the long-term effects are. But what we do know is that this community is a resilient one, and ultimately people are going to do what they need to do to survive.